Hello, I'm Catherine Grau and welcome to this special Australia Network presentation of the opening of the Global Foundations Australia Summit from the National Gallery of Victoria in Melbourne. Australian Prime Minister Julia Gillard delivered the keynote address around the theme Australia in the Asian Century. The event was hosted by Australia Network's Beverly O'Connor.
Welcome very warmly to this gala dinner for the Global Foundation. My name is Beverly O'Connor and I am a news presenter on Australia Network, and it is truly a delight for us to be the media partners for this very important 2012 Australia Summit as we think about the very important question of what Australia in the Asian century means and what it's going to look like.
I played in Canberra for the last weekend, you know. We're a happy little Canberra.
Australia and the world has been the Global Foundation's motif and natural territory since our formation. It's formed the basis of our Rolling Australia program over the last 18 months, which is one of the most ambitious community consultation and dialogue programs ever conducted by a non-government organisation in this country and indeed internationally. Now, the Australia program has 5 key themes. First, Australia's future economy. How do we maximise Australia's economic potential, ensuring that we remain globally competitive using all the skills and tools available to us in the digital age? Second, national and global food security, which I personally see as the greatest potential threat to global stability. How do we meet the need to virtually double food production by 2050 with rapidly decreasing land and water availability and reduced soil fertility? Third, sustainable nation, sustainable planet. How does this planet of ours, due to reach 9 to 10 billion by 2050, meet resource-wise and sustainably the understandable middle-class aspirations of hundreds of millions of global, rural and urban poor surviving currently on around $2 a day? Fourth, Australia's global and regional engagement. Can Australia play an influential role in ensuring that the 3 great players in the globe today, China, India and the United States, always continue to talk? And closer to home, how do we better engage with our near neighbours, Papua New Guinea, Indonesia and the Pacific Islands, to name some? And finally, empowerment of citizens and the nature and shape of future governance. As I understand it, the Australia in the Asian Century White Paper will certainly address our key international relationships, but importantly it will also serve as a guidance basis for government, underpinning the ongoing transformations which this country will have to make if we are to fully understand and benefit from the Asian century now upon us.
If there is one thing that we are certain of, is that Australia is not far away. Australia is part of this global economy, global market, where trade, services, capitals, people move very fast, and where the world moves upward or downward in next to no time, where we know that we either swim or sink together. And in that very strongly interconnected, very fast world as well, Australia plays a critical role. Australia, as you know, is a member of the IMF, and as such, as always, Madam Prime Minister, dear Julia, always advocated strong leadership, multilateral approach to issues, a very practical sense of getting on with it and addressing the issues, offering solutions, being available when needed, being positive all the time. So often, your finance minister has advocated that we be together rather than separate, that we focus on the collective issue rather than look at our own backyard. And Australia plays that role because it's an economy that is used to cycles, to the booms and the busts. And throughout those cycles, the Australian enterprises, the Australian people always remain positive and riveted to improving the state of the Australian economy and participating in improving the world as it is.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like you all to please stand as we get ready to welcome the Honourable Prime Minister of Australia, Ms. Julia Gillard. Prime Minister of Australia, the Honourable Julia Gillard, MP, Major General Michael Jeffrey, Chairman of the Global Foundation and the former Governor-General of Australia, Mr. Fergus Ryan, Chairman of the Advisory Council of the Global Foundation, the Ambassador of Brazil, His Excellency Mr. Ruben Carreiro Barbosa, the Ambassador of China, His Excellency Mr. Chen Yuming, the Ambassador of the European Union, His Excellency Mr. David Daly, the Ambassador of France, His Excellency Mr. Stéphane Romete, the Consuls General of India, Indonesia, Malaysia, and the United States of America, the Ambassador of Indonesia to China, His Excellency Mr. Imran Khatan, the Most Reverend Anglican Archbishop of Melbourne, Dr. Philip Freyer, and Mrs. Joy Freyer, Chairman of the World Chinese Economic Forum, Dr. Michael Yeo, the Assistant Secretary General of the Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industry, Ms. Manju Prakesh, senior officials of the Australian Government, Dr. Ian Watt and Dr. Ken Henry, the Mayor of Warrnambool, Ms. Jacinta El-Makora and her delegation, Tina Arena and Jonathan Mills, members of the Board and the Advisory Council of the Global Foundation, the Honourable Warwick Smith, former Chairman of the Board, Mr. Steve Howard, the Secretary General, our major sponsors, supporting sponsors, and media partners. We are very grateful to have the Prime Minister here to deliver a keynote address. It's going to get, I hope, all of you very excited about the coming days' discussions and debate, which will continue tomorrow. And also, of course, to provide some reflection for the Prime Minister as she and the Global Foundation provides input to the final white paper, which the Prime Minister will release in coming months on that very topic.
Thank you very much. Can I start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet, and in a spirit of reconciliation paying my respects to elders past and present. Can I thank Russell for that very kind introduction, and can I acknowledge the great and the good in the room, most particularly, of course, Michael Jeffries and Steve Howard. It's a great pleasure to be able to join them here tonight. 10 days ago, so not that long ago, I was making my 6th visit to Asia as Australia's Prime Minister. I visited Kranji War Ceremony and there reflected on the Singapore of 1942 and the Singapore of 2012. I reflected on how a nation can be so radically transformed in the space of just one lifetime. Singapore is now a powerhouse of Asian growth, a hub for education, transport, investment and regional diplomacy. Since 1942, its population has grown from 1 million to 5 million, and their living standards today are, on average, more than 10 times higher, and average life expectancy has increased by almost 30 years. Today's Singapore would have been unimaginable in 1942. Singapore's rise is richly symbolic of Asia's extraordinary rise, a story that could be told in 1,000 ways, but for which I will give you just one compelling statistic. In 1992, China and India accounted for less than a tenth of world gross domestic product. In the 2 decades since, in a growing global economy, that has doubled. Of course, Australia has also been transformed since World War II to become a dynamic, prosperous and diverse nation in which we pride ourselves on maintaining our unique blend of prosperity and fairness. At the time of the fall of Singapore, Asia represented a threat to the Australian identity. Over the decades since, our engagement with Asia has become essential to our identity. Our relationships with the diverse nations of our region are both positive and successful. In 1950, Australia's goods exports to Japan, to ASEAN and other major Asian countries were around 13% of all of Australia's goods exports. Today, China, Japan, Korea, India and our ASEAN neighbours absorb around 3/4 of our merchandise exports. For all of us, the speed and reach of these changes are unprecedented. But if you think that the change we have lived through already in our region and in our nation is amazing, then my message tonight is hang on to your hats, because there is so much more change to come. Today, for example, 30% of global output is created within 10,000 kilometres of Australia's shores. That may double by 2050. The number of middle-class people in the region is projected to rise from around 500 million today to 3.2 billion by 2030. By 2030, China and India alone are forecast to account for 35% of global energy demand. The number of internet users in Asia and the Pacific tripled between 2005 and 2011, from 344 million to more than 1 billion. Every day, the number of people living in Asian cities grows by more than 120,000. As Prime Minister, I want Australians to understand what all this change will mean for our nation and for them. Adapting to the Asian century requires a response from every level of our society, and that is why I decided to commission a white paper on Australia in the Asian century. And I did note, Ken Henry is here tonight, I did note that Michael Jeffries referred to this, I think the terminology was, as an overarching and detailed look, one of the most significant policy documents in contemporary times. So Ken, I just want to reassure you there's no pressure, just no pressure at all. But we are eagerly awaiting Ken's draft paper to then become what will be the government's white paper. And its purpose, of course, is Australia needs to plan for this era of change. We need to plan for our future, and we particularly need to plan so that we can seize the tremendous opportunities that that future presents to us. I want to see a growing national debate and dialogue about the impact of what is happening across our region and about how we as a nation should respond. So I very much welcome this summit and the work of the Global Foundation.